Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the marketplace. Coming up, IMF projects Ghana's debt to GDP ratio to hit 83% by end of this year, far higher than what was posted in 2023. Also coming up, Springfield Group debunks assertions of submitting contradictory data to government, direct lawyers to write to ACEP to retract and apologize. Ahead, we have a response from ACEP.
We haven't even done the work. We are now about to do the work. What he's saying is false. It's defamation to a level that's unreasonable and unacceptable.
We're going to get a response from ACEP. Also coming up, Parliament's Finance Committee Chairman Patrick Boama admits current stalemate in Parliament could cripple economy and Ghana's IMF program. My name is Darryl Carr. Thanks for being with us. Details coming up. All right, thanks for joining us. We'll be taking our currency news later in the program. First, though, the IMF is projecting that Ghana's debt to GDP ratio will hit 82.9% by the end of this year. George Affe has more from the latest fiscal monitor report released by the fund in Washington, D.C.
Ghana's debt stock as a percentage of the total value of Ghana's economy ending July this year stood at 75.7%. The IMF in its fiscal outlook report is projecting that it would hit 83% at the end of this year. But with Ghana's debt to GDP at July this year representing almost 761 billion Ghana cedis, it is not clear for now whether in monetary terms the debt stock will be going up further if IMF's projection is anything to go by. Again, the question here is that the stock going up will be driven by the cedi's depreciation, or maybe the economy not expanding that much to accommodate the rise in debt levels. Some would also be raising questions about the impact of the domestic and external debt restructuring on the country's debt stock, and whether we are on track to reduce our debts to sustainable levels by 2028, with the debt GDP ratio reaching 50%. Meanwhile, government sources have told Joy Business that the debt projection didn't factor the work the government has done so far in restructuring the country's debt stock.
Now, economics lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Priscilla Chumesi-Balfour, is calling on businesses to shy away from politically exposed supply chain deals. According to her, such business operations are likely to be affected negatively after the election outcome failed to favor the parties in the business. Dr. Chumesi was speaking to Joy Business after a panel discussion on the 2024.
The CEO's Outlook is an annual report by KPMG that engages the global top business captains on economic trends and projections into the next few years. KPMG in Ghana this year assembled some key members of the business community to deliberate on critical findings in the report and discuss solutions ahead. Some highlights in this year's report include geopolitical tensions and effect on businesses, as well as issues of environmental sustainability governance. Speaking to Joy Business after a panel discussion, economist at the University of Ghana, Dr. Priscilla Chumesi-Balfour, advised that exposing businesses to politically influenced activities could have a negative effect in the near future.
I believe they need to not to be too involved in politically sensitive activities, politically sensitive value chains, because if indeed you are, and there happens to be a change which doesn't favor the business, then it means that the business doesn't thrive. And so essentially we are looking for businesses that are resilient regardless of which government is in power. And I think that is the discussion that we need to focus on going forward. And essentially what is required is a solid macroeconomic fundamentals, as we've indicated. There are signs of good recovery on the economic front. And if all things are equal and businesses plan based on the trajectory we are seeing, I believe that the future recovery will.
Meanwhile, senior country partner at KPMG, Anthony Sapon, urged the business community to navigate towards sustainable initiatives as many global supply chains continue to divert attention towards environmental governance.
Both globally in Africa, there's a view that 2025 and beyond is going to see more stability and growth, which is good for businesses, which is good for all stakeholders, which is good for government. What we need from the geopolitical side is the continued stability of political situations. And when you create stability, business leaders prefer it. They're able to plan, they're able to execute, and they're able to deliver on their ambitions. So we're looking forward to the next 3 years being a global world where, with all the challenges of supply chain, with all the challenges of conflict, with all the challenges of economic downturn, looking forward to a situation where globally in Africa, businesses will focus on sustainability, businesses will focus on growth, and businesses will focus on developing the skills of people. And to sum it all up, this all ends up in ESG.
Over 130 CEOs from across the globe were interviewed in this year's Outlook.
All right, turning to other news now, indigenous oil drilling firm Springfield Group has debunked assertions by the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP, Benjamin Boakye, that Springfield's recent appraisal of the Afina field contradicts original claims. Responding to this, Kevin Autry, Chief Executive of Springfield Group, explained that the assertions are false and the company has written to ACEP to apologize and retract or face legal action.
They are at a press conference. Springfield, led by its chief executive, Kevin Autry, explained that the company just started an appraisal program, hence it has not yet ascertained the needed data, which will constitute an appraisal report. He described Mr. Boakye's statement as false.
We are now even informing you, the public, the media, that our rig just came. We haven't even done anything. I'm wondering, where this guy is getting this information from, because we haven't even done the work. We are now about to do the work. What he's saying is false. It's defamation to a level that's unreasonable and unacceptable. I don't have the work. We are now about to. You saw blue chip companies, Halliburton, Schlumberger, Baker Hughes, GE, Northern Ocean. These are international companies that they have their reputation on the line. They work for Exxon, they work for Chevron, Tullow. Even ENI, they work for them.
He announced that he has directed his lawyers to write to Ben Boakye to retract and apologize or face a lawsuit.
Our lawyers have written to him to retract and apologize. If not, we're going to take legal actions. They are just lies, but you have to understand, some people just enjoy these lies for whatever reasons.
On proceeding with the appraisal drilling, Mr. Autry revealed that the Deep Sea Bolster, the mobile offshore drilling rig, has arrived in the country to commence drilling.
Without wasting any time ourselves, GMPC worked very hard and we secured a rig from Northern Ocean. The rig is called Deep Sea Bolster. It's a semi-sub rig. And I would like to basically announce to everyone here that the rig is finally in country and we have commenced the appraisal program.
About 5 years ago, Springfield Exploration and Production Limited and its partners, GNPC and Exploco, made a huge discovery with the drilling of the Afina well at their West Cape 3 Point Block 2 offshore. The issue of unitization between Springfield and ENI Ghana ended up with the deferment of appraisal of the Afina well. Following the ruling which went in favor of Springfield, the partners involved in the West Cape 3 Point Block 2 offshore were directed by the Petroleum Commission to submit and conduct an appraisal program in line with the petroleum agreement. Reporting for Joy Business, Isaac Atase Nyako, Accra.
Well, in the last few hours, we've gotten a response from ACEP. Joining me in studio is my colleague Winston Taki, who has been going through, is it a response from ACEP to the effect, to that effect? And so essentially, are we getting an apology from ACEP to this?
ACEP is not directly apologizing, but they are clarifying their assertion against Springfield and the dealing in the oil industry. So still, they reiterated that there is still data inconsistencies that Springfield has released. And according to them, Springfield's program presented data which has significantly been different from that presented by the Energy Ministry. So when it came to the directive that the ministry gave, the Springfield and partners were supposed to receive about 54.544%, while ENI and its partners are supposed to receive 45.455% in terms of the outlook. But key amongst that particular directive is the oil-water contact, which was part of the data that was necessary to ascertain the negotiation and the outtake. And one of the statements that was made was that the OWC, that is the oil-water contact, provided in Springfield's appraisal data, which was used from the onset, is onset for their FINA discovery would likely have been deemed to require further work for assessment. So that is the data inconsistency that ACEP was mentioning. ACEP went ahead to mention appraisal cost. According to them, from the onset, if the data that the Energy Ministry was used from the onset, it wouldn't have been necessary for us to be receiving the data, which is now estimated to pay about $50 million in the appraisal process. So in that fact, they said that delaying the well test to now increase the cost of Ghana National Petroleum Authority and Exploco, which are partners in the FINA field, is now a burden for both the National Petroleum Authority and the Exploco, including the Energy Ministry.
Yeah.
So there is three main concerns. These two being said that they also added the concerns about unitization, which is also not being clear. According to them, when the directive was given, the ruling was made, so now ENI has not been involved in the discussion about the outtake which is currently about to happen.
Well, data shouldn't be difficult to, accurate data shouldn't be difficult to ascertain. I don't know what the challenge is with getting accurate data, but how is this, the ACEP is saying that this is actually costing the government its legal battle to do with unitization.
So it is indeed, according to ACEP, it is really costing the nation. And their objective is not basically to attack Springfield, but to bring sanity in the oil sector. Consistently, ACEP has been hitting on involvement, politicization of contract in the oil sector. If you assess the market for the last 5 or 6 years, involvement of investors has been quite minimal in Ghana. So they say they are fighting for open market, ensuring that policy directions are adhered to. But if you look at the structure, especially regulations under the Energy Ministry, there has not been much of oversight on the operations.
All right, we'll see how that goes. But before you go, a quick update on the energy front, because the Energy Ministry has released a statement as well. What is it saying?
So there has been increasing calls by stakeholders for unitization of ECG, Widco, BRI, and some have said that looking at their performance so far, it has not been quite impressive. And the pressure was on the ministries, and some stakeholders, CSOs have also said, is not the right course to go. Immediately, we are receiving information that the whole project to bring the unitization of the energy sector has been called off. So in a letter dated 17th October 2024, the Ministry of Energy, in a letter headed request to suspend consideration of gazetted bills in Parliament, stated that the Ministry of Energy refers to a letter dated 4th September 2024, submitting gazetted copies of the following bills to Parliament for consideration. And the bill involves the Ghana Thermal Authority Bill 2024, Ghana Hydro Authority Bill 2024, the Ghana Power Distribution Authority Bill 2024, and the Ghana Energy Regulatory Authority Bill 2024. The ministry respectfully requests Parliament to suspend consideration of the aforementioned bill to enable further consultation with stakeholders. So this was the request by the Energy Ministry, and hoping should Parliament sit, they should consider it immediately.
All right, thank you so much for the update. We'll keep following Winston Taki there with news from the energy front. You're watching The Marketplace. We are turning next to business and politics. Thanks for being with us, everyone. Now, turning to business and politics, Chairman of Parliament's Finance Committee, Patrick Boama, is warning that the current stalemate in Parliament could cripple the economy and affect Ghana's program with the IMF. It follows the Speaker of Parliament's decision to adjourn the House indefinitely as a result of a Supreme Court ruling temporarily halting his decision to declare 4 seats vacant. Chairman of Parliament's Finance Committee, Patrick Boama, has been speaking to Joy Business. Take a listen.
What are some of those key legislations that should have been passed in the House over last week and even this week and even going forward, that these current uncertainties could delay these regulations as well, that could have an impact even on us going to the board for our third review?
First of all, I mentioned the Ghana Investment Promotion Center bill, where the center is seeking to become an authority, to be able to have some dedicated funds outside what was in the center's mandate, where they are asking for some clear budget lines to be budgetary allocations to be made. Secondly, they are asking for some fees and charges to be levied on some companies, which I believe definitely will find its way or expression in the Fees and Charges and Miscellaneous Act, Parliament. Secondly, I also mentioned the Environmental Protection Agency bill, which is going through the consideration stage, where the Minister, Ophelia Mensah Hayford, the MP from Fansman, has been very active on, with Dr. Marfo, the chair of the Environment Committee. Thirdly, some reforms in some regulations needs to be looked at, especially in the Public Financial Management Act and some legislations or regulations that came with it. You also know that we have a loan agreement for the Financial Sector Stabilization Fund, which my committee looked at. A report was presented, but there was some disagreement on whether a fund properly so called with a body that to administer it, or it's just a fund to be managed through the central bank and the Ministry of Finance. That's my view. Those are the kind of issues that are pending. It's a 250 million World Bank facility to help stabilize the financial sector, which went through serious turmoil during the COVID period.
Well, Chairman of Parliament's Finance Committee, Patrick Boama, they're joining me in studio is Parliamentary Affairs Correspondent Kweku Asante with more on this one. So he talks about the implications on the economy and the IMF program. What's at stake?
Well, I think he couldn't have hit the nail on that head, because if you look at the EPA bill, it is part of the conditionalities of the current IMF deal that government is seeking to get. There's also the matter of about $350 million worth of tax waivers. We should know that these are really unprecedented times in the life of Parliament. At the end of this year, almost everything that is before Parliament, if it is not transacted, will expire. So if these bills, if this $350 million worth of tax waivers, there's a $250 million worth of loan, the IDA facility for the Ghana Financial Stability Project.
Right.
If all of these are not dealt with before the midnight of 7 January 2025, all of them go down the drain and they get to start afresh. And that is why the government side is ramping up the pressure on the Speaker of Parliament to recall the House to get these things done. There are matters having to do with illegal mining, and all these really come back.
We tried to catalog a few of them. So approval of the budget for the first quarter of 2025, the LI revoking mining.
We literally could risk a government shutdown if you go to election. Ordinarily, the thing about the budget is not such a big deal, because after election, they can come back. But what if there's a runoff in the election, which means that MPs are all over the place again campaigning for their respective presidential candidates for that 28th December election, and then you are just zooming right into January, and then you don't have a budget from 1st January. So that is very crucial. There's also the $250 million Ghana Financial Stability Fund project that I spoke about. Government needs that. If government gets $250 million between now and December, we can see some changes with the Ghana cedi and its stability. Fortunately for government, this $250 million Ghana energy sector loan has now been passed by Parliament prior to all this political brouhaha.
Okay.
And so that is off the table for now. So these are some of the key issues.
Tax waivers.
$350 million worth of tax waivers. All these companies who've had tax waivers sitting on the tables of Parliament for the last 4 years. I'm sure some of them are tired, some of them have given up, and they need it. Some of them, it is contingent on approving this first before they mobilize and come into the country to come and do this one district, one factory. And all these persons, there's also the 2 Supreme Court nominees. So there's a lot at stake in Parliament, and that is why the government side is getting the
But we are seeing the MPP caucus try to push to get the House to reconvene. Where are we at?
Well, they have sent that memo to the Speaker. The Speaker has between yesterday and next week, Tuesday, that will be 7 days, for him to respond. And then, when it comes to this matter, he's not giving any room of any latitude on that. It's a shall. And so he will have to reconvene Parliament after 7 days. But the big question is, after the 7 days, if he agrees to recall Parliament, when is he going to do so? Is he going to do so in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks? Because there's a matter having to do with whether or not, if the matter is an emergency, Parliament has to reconvene right after that 7 days. But the Speaker of Parliament is the one who makes the determination as whether or not these things are emergency or not. And so if he decides that because of this political crisis, I'm going to recall Parliament in the middle of November, at the end of November, does government have that room to wait for that long? And that is why this is so crucial. Oseche Mensah Bonsu, speaking with Evans Mensah, in a yet to be air PM Express interview, is calling for dialogue. He's asking eminent Ghanaians, he himself says he's going to chip in and try and speak to the Speaker. Because at this point, that is the only way you can get the Speaker to back down on entrenched positions all the persons around the table are taking.
And this morning, we had reportage that the NDC, Roxanne Dofia, is also trying to get the Supreme Court to interpret that aspect of the Constitution that calls on the Speaker to, I mean, if there's was it
15% of MPs, if they recall the House for an emergency sitting. And he says he wants to go to the Supreme Court. Although that is clear and sharp.
He hasn't gone yet?
Yes, he hasn't filed that application yet. But it tells you that there's a lot of politics ongoing around this scenario. A lot of people taking actions to further their own causes. And that is why dialogue is necessary. If he files this and the Speaker of Parliament is said, okay, listen, let's wait until the Supreme Court determines that matter. That could literally be the end of the 8th Parliament, because some of these matters could take so long for the Supreme Court to determine. So high stakes, and both sides really need to drop down their entrenched positions, because the economy...
You mentioned there's a lot of politics at play, but we also have to prioritize national interest. So how far do you think these politicians will go? At what point would they say, okay, let's stop with the politics? We have to...
Well, at this point, I don't think anybody is willing to let their stance go, because the 7th December election is barely 45 days away. And politicians are looking at the things they will do that will inure to them and their benefit. They're looking at things that will energize their base. People won't necessarily go to the ballot and vote for NDC MPP because of this political stalemate, but they are energizing their own bases on both sides. And that is why it is important for cool health to prevail. People need to drop down their entrenched positions they've taken direct.
The political circus continues meantime, and that's the marketplace. Thanks for watching, everyone. More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. We're leaving you with currency market updates. We'll see you same time tomorrow.